The second section, which I think is more important because this is just getting the mechanics of it. The second part here begins to talk about the manner and the inner dimension or spirit of zakat. So someone that is seeking the hereafter with their zakat, okay, because you remember that's what we're doing. Everything that we're doing of devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in light of our journey to Allah in the home of the hereafter. We are on a journey and we're using whatever we have been given. We're employing all of our assets in order to be successful in that journey. So some things have to be managed. Number one, that you understand the intent behind zakat. There's three things. The first is to test a person who claims to love Allah by having them give some of what they love. It's a test, right? So the wealth that you possess, Allah will test you with that wealth. He will test you with your wealth all the way through from the beginning to the end. He'll test you on how you go get it. He'll test you on what you do with it. And then he'll test you with, will you spend some of it? Will you get rid of some of what you love? Those that claim to love Allah. And the next is that you can rid yourself of stinginess and destructive miserliness. You can rid your heart of that disease because you have to force yourself to give. And the miser doesn't give. The stingy, they don't give. They refuse to. And then the third thing is to show gratitude for the blessing of wealth. So by giving for the sake of Allah, it's a sign of gratitude. You're showing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you're grateful for what you have been blessed with. That is the first thing, containing three. Number two is that when you distribute your zakat, you do it in secret. Because this is further away from showing off. It's further away from serving yourself. It's further away from developing a reputation, which is very self-serving. And by doing it publicly, it also humiliates those that are in need. Potentially could humiliate them. You know, I know you're in need, here you go. So imagine while you are pushing yourself up to be the hero, the person that may be shy and they may have some honor, you know, you're just trampling it by doing that. And that's a potential. And so, you know, that's why it's preferred that when you give your zakat, you do it in secret. Unless you fear that by doing it secretly, you will be the subject of tuhma, which is you will be accused of not giving zakat. Somebody would accuse you that, well, this person doesn't give their zakat. So if that's the case, then what you can do is find someone that doesn't mind that exchange publicly. Like I said, some people mind that terribly. Others, it's not that big of a deal. They become accustomed to receiving help publicly, and so to give it to them will not harm them. And so if you can find a person like that, then publicly you can give so that people see that you're a person that pays zakat, so that you're not subject to criticism of such a nature. And then you can give other people the zakat in secret. The second or the third thing is you don't spoil it. Bil-manni wal-adha. Right? So you've gone about the first two things in the right way. The last thing that you want to go doing is giving someone something and then reminding them about it and then harming them with it. Well, you remember when I gave you this? You need to do that. Don't you know how I helped you out? You start to use it as a tool and a way to leverage someone, that you help them in a way. And this happens when a person sees themselves as muhsin lil faqir. They see themselves as being benevolent to a poor person or someone in need. Or an organization, a charitable organization. They give and they see themselves as muhsin. Says, I'm the one that's helping you out. So I'm going to leverage that. They see themselves as done something that deserves reciprocity. That deserves something in return because I helped you, or I helped the organization, or I gave my zakat or something, so I'm due. And either they see themselves as having blessed the person with what they gave. Ibn al-Qudama, he says here, this is very powerful, and this is something that needs to be kept in mind, especially in these last days while we are giving zakat and we're giving charity, we're giving sadaqah, we're supporting the masjid, etc. He says, if you were really to look at it, if a person were to really look at it, they would see the faqir muhsinan ilayhi biqabul haqqillah. They would see that the person accepting and receiving that zakat or that sadaqah is the real muhsin by accepting it from them, because they are facilitating the right of Allah being distributed. If it's zakat. If it's sadaqah, they're providing you with the avenue to draw near to Allah with voluntary actions, and the voluntary actions that you do are the things which cause Allah to love you. And if it wasn't for the existence of that person, the opportunity would be lost. You could not distribute your zakat. You could not give your sadaqah. Because remember, the intention at the beginning, number one is ibtilat mudda'i muhabbatillah. The person that claims that they love Allah is to give something that they love. So the intention is, the beginning is always that I'm doing this because I want to draw near to Allah. And in order to do that, I need the opportunities. I need the means to do it. If I have the wealth, I need now the opportunities. Where do I go? Where do I give? How can I take advantage? So that is essential to remember. Because giving from your wealth is a form of purification. It's a reward and it's a form of purification. And so that's something that you have to keep with you at all times when you are distributing your zakat, that you are showing gratitude for the blessing of wealth. And if you can do that, then there's really nothing between you and the poor person besides just the exchange. That's it. The only thing that remains between you and them is the exchange. Or you and the masjid, for example, is the exchange. Thank you. Here you go. Bismillah. You've provided the opportunity. You've given the avenue for me to give, for me to worship Allah with my wealth. And that's sufficient for me. They should not look down upon a poor person due to their poverty, due to their lack of having. He says, you cannot look down at someone because they do not have money, because virtue is not in money. And deficiency is not found in a lack of money. Because you have money doesn't make you this person who's, something to be sought after, because you have wealth. And a person that doesn't have it doesn't mean that they're deficient in some way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that gives and He withholds. And that's from His decree. And we can see this in life, where a college dropout can become a multi-billionaire. And someone that has a PhD is living on the street. And you would think the exact opposite, because that's just, how we judge things, what seems rational. Someone, he didn't graduate, he didn't finish, on the surface of it, it would seem like, well, look, this person's more deserving. That's just how it is. And then you can see people that they work very hard at what they do. They work very hard. They toil over their work, but they make their income is meager. And then there are those that just They were born into money. And they have everything they want. They were given it. They don't work for it. It's given it to them. It's given to them. It's given to them. So you can see that the money here is not what makes the man, right? A person's faith, a person's character, a person's dignity, a person's righteousness is what makes the man. The next thing, number 4, is that you minimize what you've given. When you give it, you throw it behind your back. What I gave, it meant nothing. It was nothing. The person that makes it out to be something grand, they are infatuated with themselves. They're amazed, astonished. Like, look at me. Look what I've done. I'm so good, right? And this will spoil the act. It was said that righteousness is not complete except by 3 things. Number 1, that you diminish it in your own sight. What I offered was nothing. It was insufficient. Even if it was an amazing amount or a lot of prayers or something, you just, in your mind, you have to diminish that thing down to nothing. The next thing is that you do it in haste. You don't delay. Don't delay righteousness, but you do it in haste. And the next is that you conceal and cover it. You don't go about boasting and bragging and harming people with that. Like, look what I did. I'm responsible. I'm such and such. Number 5 is that you give from the halal wealth, your most halal, the purest of your wealth. When you give in zakat or in sadaqah, you give from the best of your wealth, and you give from that which you love the most. 3 things: that which is halal, that which is of good quality, and that which you love. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is tayyib. He is pure. La yaqbalu illa tayyiba. Doesn't accept but that which is pure. And also that which is good, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَلَا تَيَمَّمُوا الْخَبِيثَ مِنْهُ تُنْفِقُونَ. He says, and do not seek to give the deficient and defective of your wealth in charitable spending. So there's 2 things here, and this is, there's a little bit of self-interest in this. And we all have that inside of us. What's in it for me? And that's fine. احتسبوا أعمالكم, right? Take account of your actions and your rewards. He says it's important that you think about 2 things. Consider the following 2 things. The first is that this is the right of Allah. This is the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by giving your zakat. And you're going to glorify Him by giving it. And He is more deserving that you select something for Him. Something which is ajwad, the best of your wealth. He's more deserving that you select the best of your wealth. He says, imagine that someone wanted to give something to their guest. They gave them the off food. It was like poor quality or something wrong with it, or imagine it was half-eaten plate, or it was going off, just being spoiled. Someone gave, what would that do? The one that received it would, or the one that watched it, everyone involved would be angry, terribly disappointed. So when you give your wealth for Allah, do you think if you give the defective of your wealth, the insufficient of your wealth, if you give it, do you think it's going to garner Allah's love? You didn't give what you loved. You expecting Allah's love in return? You give Him the crumbs. Here you go. Here, my Allah, here you go. Here's my crumbs. Thank you for everything I have, and I will give you the scraps. Love me. Can't imagine that. The next part of this, he says, is to consider the right of the person receiving. Excuse me. The next part is to consider your own self. This is where the self-interest comes. He says, because what you are extending, what you are giving, you will find it tomorrow. Fil qiyamah. So if you gave the crumbs, guess what's going to be waiting for you? Fil qiyamah. Those little crumbs you gave. If you gave the trash, wallah, this is the strangest thing. The clothes bin out here, it's a fine example, right? And we know the clothes bin here is for Syrian refugees. You go through your clothes, you take the holy ones, you take the stained ones, you take the ripped ones, you put them in a trash bag, you dump them in there, and you walk away and you go, alhamdulillah. I just gave the scraps, I gave the worst of what I have again. I felt guilty of throwing it in the trash because that's really where I wanted to go, but because of my guilt, I didn't throw it in the trash, I gave it to these people here. What do you want to wear fil qiyamah? Right? You know you're going to be dressed in something, fil kafan, right? When you go into your grave, you're going to be dressed in a shroud. What is it that you want? What type of shroud is it that you want to receive? That's what we're looking at here. So you have to consider yourself in the picture as well. It's not just about the person that's receiving, it's more about you. The person that you're giving to is the avenue for your own reward. The organization that you're contributing to is an avenue for your own reward. That's it. You're not giving sadaqah to me. You contribute to the masjid. You're not giving me sadaqah. Yeah. If you think that way, you've blown half of it. All you're doing is al-mujzi, just getting the minimum. That's not. You can't approach this. The brothers. The challenge is here in our day and age. Money has become something that it's not. Money has been made into something that it's not. What it is a tool. It's a device. It's a means. Today it's the end goal. It's been made into the end goal. And so our idea of what it is and how it should work and how it should be used has been warped terribly to the point that most people don't give zakat. And that's the obligation. And when you talk about the voluntary act of giving charity, that's a whole other story altogether. And in regards to giving that which is most beloved, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You will not achieve piety until you spend of that which you love. Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, it was said that if he really loved something, he would use it to draw near to Allah. So there's this little story. He went to Al-Juhfa, which is a city right outside of Medina. Today it's considered part of Medina. It's the place you stop when you're making Umrah or Hajj to make the Ihram when you're coming from Medina. And he was complaining. He said, I really want fish. And looking around to get fish, I only found one fish. So his wife took it and she cooked it and then she gave it to him. Then a poor person came. Poor person came along. Ibn Umar, he took the fish and he said, here, take it, to the poor person. Yeah, he was complaining, he made a big fuss about it. You know how it is. Looking everywhere. I just want kebabs. Tandoori's closed. I'm calling around. I'm trying to put my order in. I just got a craving for this. It's not happening. The wife's able to do it for you. Figure it out. You get one plate and you're like, by that point, it's just, you're salivating over it. Just imagine if it's our time. Because we can be quite intense with that. And then you just go, you see someone that needs it, and you just go, here. But you're not doing that so they can go, oh, mashallah. You're not doing that so the person receiving goes, oh, mashallah. You're so generous. The way you look at him as an avenue. You say, oh, alhamdulillah, here's an opportunity for me to get close to Allah because I'm sacrificing. It's all about what's happening inside. The mechanics of it is just the transaction. But the real benefit of it's the inner dimension which is happening, and that is a sacrifice, a devotional sacrifice for Allah Azza wa Jal. So she said, look, you've burdened us with this, you're complaining about it, and we have other things we could have given. And he says, Inna Abdullah yuhibbu. Servant of Allah loves the fish. And there's a lot of stories like this. And hopefully we'll talk about some of those stories in the coming hours and days, inshallah. The next thing, number 6, is regarding the person you're going to give the zakat to. And obviously there are the 8 categories of zakat. You have fuqara wal masakin, you have the amalina alayha, who are the amilina alayha, who are the people that distribute the zakat. You have the people that you give to soften their heart. You have fir riqab, those are bond servants to free them. You have al-gharimin, those that are strapped in debt. You have fi sabilillah, in the way of Allah. And then you have ibn sabil. Ibn sabil is a person who's traveling and is destitute or is without resources. So those are the 8 categories. However, within those 8 categories, you need to be specific as to who it is within those categories that you select for your zakat. And this is where we will conclude for today.